Hello, my mystical friends. Today we have our beautiful friend Nika, who will introduce us to the world of the runes, a Nordic divination tool. Welcome, Nika.
Hi, thank you.
We're so happy to have you here to explain us this interesting divination tool. I remember that I just had once from a very dear friend a reading with these very precious um, stones, but we would like to know more about does it come from, um, how did you start it in the first place?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. It's so nice to be able to talk about these things, even though we're all like far apart and whatnot. Like I miss hanging out with fellow interested people in these things. How I got into the runes is I'll try to sum it up. It's actually a long story. But when I was very young, when I was 14 years old, I moved to South America from the Netherlands. I am Dutch. And got very spiritual very fast. Chile, or at least where I was living, was very spiritual for me in the experience of living there. But I couldn't connect to any spiritual tools that are available there because most of it is indigenous. And though welcomed, of course, it's not my thing. So I was looking for sort of my own roots and sort of a way to express my own spirituality and access my own gifts within this without crossing boundaries that aren't mine to cross, maintaining respect for indigenous knowledge and practices that aren't mine. And really the only thing that you find, or the thing that connected to me that you find here in the Netherlands, are runes, which are an old Germanic alphabet, basically consisting of 24 symbols, if we're talking about the Elder Futhark, which is the name of the alphabet. And this was used most widely known by Vikings for both game and divination tools.
That's super interesting because, like we were talking before, it reminds me also of the tarot, no? And
Yeah.
how a game becomes such a tool for divination. But I was very interested for you of this chat, especially because you were referring about oracle reading as an empowerment tool and not something that we can go to get answers to a problem.
Right. That kind of leads back into it being a game for
Oh,
Germanic peoples and Vikings. Um, Game and play is very important, specifically if you consider that they would spend large, like vast amount of time in the dark, up and like closer to the Nordic Circle, to the Arctic Circle. You have really long and very dark winters. So what would happen is that they would mostly all hang out in like the common room or in the common house, which was often also the house of the leaders of the tribe, for example, around larger fires. And they'd get a little rowdy and they'd have a drink and they'd eat and they would play. And part of how I understand oracle guidance, be that by the runes, or by tarot or by oracle cards, is that it's not just an answer, it's that you get to play while figuring out where you're going or where you are or how to solve perhaps a certain problem, which means that it takes you out of the headspace that sees only a problem. So let's say someone comes in, like the typical questions that you get are about love life, they're about finances, work, and family. So someone comes in and they have an issue in the workplace, and the only thing that they can see is this issue that they have in the workplace. And I need an answer. I need to solve this. But that is often very conducive to actually finding a solution, because you have to orient yourself towards a solution and not towards the problem. And that's where play and oracles come into the game, so to speak. So when we ask the tarot, you immediately, first of all, you ask someone else. So you have a different perspective
Yes.
of what you're inside of. That already, I feel, creates a huge difference. And then on top of that, you get, you know, when it's cards, when it's tarot cards or oracle cards, you get all these beautiful images and all of this symbolism, and you get this really intuitive interpretation of what is on the cards. With the runes, it's perhaps a bit more rudimentary because they're just symbols, they're like letters. So there isn't a lot of imagery that you can get from it, but it's still, I think, often intriguing and different enough to take the person out of the problem setting and into a setting of curiosity, which automatically opens you up to become more solution oriented than you are when you're focusing on a problem.
Yes, that's absolutely true, because I remember the day that I met you. That was for me so cool.
Really?
So cool. Yeah, that it was like I was with a friend in the center, and then I usually go to the store where you were reading the runes.
Mm-hmm.
Check out, and I don't know. First time I see someone at the back, and I saw you were doing something, and I was like, oh, maybe she's reading. And it was at the time that we were thinking of doing the tarot group with Cecilia, and I was like, oh, I was super intrigued. And at the same time, I was going through a transition period in my life that
Mm-hmm.
was making me feel very narrow visioned also.
Right.
And I was okay, I'm gonna like, ooh, it looks cool. And then I approached you, and then it happened that you speak Spanish as well,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in Chile, and I was like, oh, that already, just that encounter was like taking me out of the whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's 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 kind of the idea, is that when we think of play, we immediately think of, you know, almost something childish, something that isn't serious. But chess is a game. It's taken very seriously, but it's still just a game. It's basically the same with divination. I think also a thing of the difference with asking for guidance and asking for an answer is that when you ask for an answer, you're taking it so seriously because it needs to be that. And if it doesn't turn out to be the thing that you wanted, it becomes heavy and difficult, and you're going to have to deal with a whole new problem instead of having solved the problem that you came to solve. When you put it in play and you don't take it as seriously, but you take it as guidance, you get to decide yourself more or less what you do with the advice that is given to you.
I
yeah,
think
and
it's
that's
so
the other part.
amazing.
Yeah, it is super amazing, because I think the other part that was so important for me from that meeting was that at the end of the reading, I feel super empowered. I was like, of course it's my choice. Of course it's my own make. I could really see the like the storm that I was making in this glass of water. I could really went like, I, of course I have a choice. What I was, it was super empowering.
I'm so
And
glad to hear that. That's so
yeah,
good.
super. Every time I have a reading with you, it's like I actually approach it also to, well, like you were saying, to have an external view,
Mm-hmm.
but also to get back that sense of empowerment, of like ownership of my life, of my power as a creator of my own life. So I'm like, oh, okay, just like a really nice reminder of that. So
I
it's
really
really
like the fact of the playing because I
yeah,
just heard like literally yesterday um, a talk with Brian Eno saying what is art.
Okay.
And he actually mentioned that art, being an artist, is going back to the playground.
Yes.
That a lot of people say, ah, is the closest thing to the soul. Well, actually, to be in the play mode is closest to the soul as well. And now that you're mentioning it, it makes so much sense, like this game, and it reaches you.
It makes perfect sense, especially if you put art next to it, and the fact that if you look at children, you know, we all know that everyone is always like children are so pure, but more than pure, they're still playing, so they're still very open to creativity. They're still very open to, all right, if it's not going to go this way, then it's going to go that way, because whatever, we're pretending anyway. And as we grow older and we get more and more responsibility, we lose this idea, or rather, we get lost in this idea of being a responsible adult, whatever that means. Like all of a sudden you have, you know, you have a job and you get married, or you have kids, or you have a dog or a cat, or you have your apartment, or you have a business that you're running, or you get caught up in all of these things that you need to be doing, and you kind of forget that we're just playing pretend. None of us know what we're doing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So now that we're talking about a game, I would like to know a little bit more about what the game consists of. Like, can you show us the runes, or
I can show you, well, I have them in stones.
yeah?
I think most people know them as stones, but you can make them out of basically anything. I mean, I could just rip 24 pieces of paper and write each symbol on a piece of paper. You can engrave them in chips of wood, pieces of glass. It doesn't really matter what the material is. The point is the symbolism. So I have them in stones, but showing you the stones is really difficult. I do, however, have an image ready here where you can
Ah,
sort of
yeah, cool.
see all of the runes.
Yes.
So it's a group of it's 3 groups of 8 symbols, and each of these, it sort of represents the wheel of fortune in the end. You know, like you start at one place and you go around and then you come back to the same place where you started. um, how it goes, it doesn't have as much as of a system as tarot does. Tarot often is, even though it's very intuitive, is learned with systems. There are spreads, for example, that a lot of tarot readers use, and they use them the same way consistently all over the world. um, but with runes, because a lot of the knowledge is lost, actually, there's very little knowledge about how this was used, why really. It's an alphabet. It's literally letters. Um, but interestingly enough, these tribes, these people didn't write a lot down. So there aren't, for example, as with the Romans or the Greeks, you don't have, you know, everything written down. There aren't receipts anywhere. It's not like they printed it anywhere out. They didn't have it chiseled on any of their homes. There are certain runic stones that you can find. There's one in Utrecht, actually, at the Dom.
The Dome Tower, yes,
Oh, where?
The Dom Tower has
yes.
it. I haven't seen it because ever since I got back to the Netherlands, the Dom Tower has been under construction or under repairs or whatever, so it's been closed. So I have not been able to go. But there is one right there in Utrecht.
Wow.
We should go.
We should.
Yes, 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 yes.
So there isn't as much of a structure to how it is used. I'm sure that there are people that do use it structurally. I'm sure that there are people who feel like there is a much better known history to it. What I have read about it, what I have researched about it, there isn't, and it doesn't seem to matter that much. In fact, it's about pattern recognition. So a lot of I know several people who use runes not as a primary tool, but for fun, basically. And they just take a handful and throw them down on the carpet, and whatever they see, that's how they interpret it. I don't. I made a system for myself, which is still very loose and very intuitive and very open. But that is because I came into studying runes with a basic knowledge of tarot.
Ah,
That is really the only difference that there is to it. I've come to a point where I now create my own spreads. So I have certain positionings for the stones, depending on what kind of energy I'm looking for, what kind of question I am asking.
wow, that's super cool. So I like the intuitive part of it. It's very. I find it also that you have made a connection with yourself.
Yes, it was, as I was saying earlier, it really came to me to study the runes because I was looking for a connection to myself. I was not necessarily lost in my life in Chile at all, but disconnected somehow, especially the last few years with what's been going on there socially, politically, and now, with Corona and everything. Um, it just felt like it wasn't necessarily my place anymore. It
Mhm.
was hard to find a way to express everything that Chile granted me in a way that made sense with me. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not Dutch, but I'm Dutch born. My childhood is very European, very Dutch. But my growth into adulthood was completely different. And it was just looking for a way to connect the spirituality that I got in Chile, with everything that came with living in Chile, to the roots of where I come from.
Mhm. And how long did it took you to be able to make a reading in with the runes? Because I understand you have to study first all the symbols, what do they mean, the alphabet. So,
Right. I think it depends on on the reader. I took about a year maybe before I started really doing it openly with other people. Mostly, I just started researching online. I started looking for what the better books were for me, what I connected with the most. And then it was just a thing of reading and going for it and finding the interested in it and looking for the history of it and understanding that specifically, in my opinion, when it comes to these types of cultural tools, that you understand the culture that they were created in. So I did a lot of reading on the mythologies. I still have so much more to learn. Like, there is so much when you look at what we do know
Yeah.
about their culture and about the mythologies and everything behind it and around it. Um,
Could you tell us, do you have a favorite, if you can summarize maybe a little bit of your favorite mythology or your favorite rune or no?
that's difficult. What I like about the mythology and about the religion, so to speak, that surrounded this is that these gods are very much alive. It's not some celestial, far off being that I will never be able to communicate with for my desires or my needs or my wants. It's not, um, it doesn't feel as abandoned, which of course makes for a lot of shenanigans and a lot of happenings between mortals and gods.
Like in the Greeks, the Greek
Right,
mythology.
right, exactly. But yeah, I really like the idea that they're very approachable energies. I use the word gods because this is how they're made in this mythology, right? But I see it more as energies. And I really like the fact that they're very approachable. I sometimes talk to them in very personable ways, and I hear the part of me that was raised on, more like a typical Christian or Catholic background, of you can't speak to a god like that. Like, that is a divine being. How dare you? I'm just telling Odin to go fuck himself, right?
Yeah.
But it's very approachable and it's very good natured, and I feel I've never felt that I've actually offended these energies by speaking to them in this way, because I need to be that close to them to have that flow. And I feel that this mythology specifically for me makes that possible.
Mm.
And what kind of gods, or how do they picture these energies? Like, is like the elements, or
No, they're gods. So you have a whole pantheon. You have Odin, who is the All Father, though he was not the first god. You have, let's see, there's Frey and Freya, which are brother and sister, who are divine beings of a different caliber than Odin is, but Freya is later lifted up or taken into the realm of the gods, basically. It's a very, um, it's again very human and very approachable from a human point of view, because they're not gods to themselves. They're
Mm.
just gods to us. They're powerful and they have magic and they have creation and they have cosmic and divine energy, but so do we, just of a lower caliber. It's just almost like a hierarchy thing. There were fights between them, and there's quarrels between them, and not they weren't always the way that they are now. And Odin wasn't always the first god or the all father, and Freya wasn't always one of the Aesir or one of the Vanir, or it flows, and they come from different parts of these 9 worlds. Their realm, their universe, so to speak, exists of 9 points, of which Midgard is the middle point, and that's where we are, Earth. That's human.
Oh my god, this sounds so much like the Lord of the Rings. I don't know why, but I believe
That's
it was
true. Lord of the Rings is actually J.R.R. Tolkien took a lot of his
right.
inspiration from Nordic mythology. A lot of it.
Yeah, because I was reading the Silmarillion, which is
Oh
the
God, yeah.
yes, yes, okay. I love it. I love those set. It's a little bit. It's a bunch of little stories on the origins of Middle Earth.
It's kind of like the Bible.
The
I
Bible.
always I always felt it was kind of like the Bible. I could never get through it. I bought it in Spanish and I have not been able to read it. It's so hard.
No, yes, I bought it in English, and I never also finished. But I wrote the beginnings of Middle Earth and the original gods, and how they divided and their curls and everything. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow. And then what you're telling me and the little bit I have researched on this mythology is just amazing.
that is
Yeah.
also from the Nordic
Yeah.
culture?
J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of Lord of the Rings, he took a lot of his inspiration from Nordic culture and Scandinavian mythology. He studied that a lot, and he brought a lot of those elements into this whole world that he set up.
Wow.
I
And
know it
what
was
about the
super impressive.
oracle cards?
Sorry,
What about the oracle cards?
what
Are
I
there a lot of them? Which ones you like most?
well, there are so many. I don't really care which ones I work with. My cousin for my birthday gave me a set of oracle cards that is worked all around endangered species on Earth. So they're all animal energies, and
Okay.
they're really lovely. They're um, very well studied of what the animal is, what the animal means to both the ecosystem and where it lives, and to sometimes indigenous peoples, if they have any interaction with that. And the energy that they bring over is, it's just very lovely. It's very animal. Um, other than that, you have angel cards and you have soul cards and you have witch cards and you have all of these different oracle decks. And I think the whole point of it again is that you're open to the suggestion that they have or that they bring, that you're open to whatever they might say. So I don't think it matters that much what sort of oracle cards you use, uh, and how you use them. I think is also a lot more open than tarot, which is just more of a system in how I know it. I don't study tarot and I never really have. I just know a lot of women that do. So I'm in contact with it a lot. And I just feel like for what I can tell thus far, if those three systems, tarot is like the most structured, and the rest is very much more, even more so intuitive. And I feel like more important that you're more open to sort of whatever. I feel like tarot is perhaps more guided specifically along an answer because it has such a wide variety of symbolism in each card.
Yes,
I don't know if you agree with that. You guys are studying it, so.
yes, there's a lot of symbolism indeed. And even sometimes when I Google, I can see that there's like online spreads for a yes or a no. You know, you can actually
Mhm.
get a card and just get a yes because there's cards that are really positive, or a no. But that depends really. Not every person that reads the tarot cards will tell you like, I'm gonna give you a yes or no answer, you know.
No, I feel like that's very difficult anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever you use, I feel like yes and no questions, again, what we were talking about earlier, so much of what happens to us, or so much of what we think is happening to us, is from our experience. So asking an outside energy or an outside person for yes or no, um, just feels like you're really restricting yourself in something. It happens to me too, that I'm calling my friends and I'm like, I just need a yes or a no. I don't want to know anything else. Just tell me. And almost always it's, I can't tell you that because there's another reason for what is happening. And that will lead you to a decision of yes or no.
So yeah, that's very cool because then something else that you mentioned before was about doing your inner work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, also when I'm doing a card reading for myself, then I also see, let's call it, the shadow work that I need to do, or the things that I need to see or
Mm-hmm.
forgive or whatever. How do you, as an oracle reader, point that out to the person that is coming to you?
A lot of it has to do with, I think it, first of all, it depends on how open the person is. So if they're coming in closed off and with, I have a problem, or if they're coming in open in, I'm looking for a solution, or I'm looking for help, or I'm
Ah,
looking for a suggestion. Very recently, actually, I had a reading with my brother, and he's usually pretty closed off about these things, and a little skeptical maybe. But as we were talking about what was going on, about what he wanted to know, without actually telling me what he wanted to know, it sort of came out. And all of a sudden, he's the one that made the connection and completely understood what was happening. And that is usually what I look for. I try to have a conversation with who is asking, to help guide them towards the answer that they are seeking. Because I might see something and I can immediately go, okay, this lady is in a victim position because she feels she needs to always take care of her husband, who is also in a victim position, right? So she came in talking about, ugh, I'm so tired of my husband who never does anything and he's always a victim.
mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's not going to change until you stop playing a hero. But if I don't do it, who does it? And that is your victim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and sometimes it takes 5 minutes and sometimes it takes 20. But you really need to, I really feel that it's very important to talk people through the process. Like, okay, let me see, and I'll just keep pulling stones, or we'll keep switching questions and just try to find a flow in which um, it becomes a conversation and not a monologue from me towards the person, because I need to know that, you know, what I like knowing that what I give is something that people actually walk away with, like what you were saying, Gwen, that you felt empowered, and that you felt that, oh my gosh, this is my own doing, which means I can also solve it. Yes, yes, that's the whole point. The point is that I help you to find the way to solve it. I don't even have to do anything often. That's really the only point, is to help sort of people get out of their own way. And that's not to say that I'm an expert at it, because I have to call a friend in Chile like every other day, like, can you pull the cards for me, because I don't know what's happening and I need help. That just happens to all of us.
That's amazing. I really think this kind of tools should be available to more and more and more and more people, even in mainstream psychology, because it's
Definitely.
so healing, like to be your own guide, and to answer your questions, your problems, with the help of these tools that at some point they connect to the very deep of your subconscious mind. Because if you are working with symbols, I believe they connect directly to that spot, no? The tarot,
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, exactly what you say about psychology and have it and needing it to go mainstream. I think in a way it is going mainstream, but more in the sense that you see it more and more in psychology, in psychology sessions. You know, therapists with their clients, or their patients even. You see more and more systemic family therapy. You see more and more that people are starting to use this thing that Jung, you know, the famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung came up with it, which is synchronicity, which is basically that a coincidence is only a coincidence until you assign meaning to it. And again, the feeling of empowerment is the fact that we are all here to create our own life. You don't have to, we don't have to follow rules. We just, in the making of human history, we created all these stories for organization because there's more and more and more of us. But within that, we lost the idea that, what I said before, we don't actually really know what we're doing anyway. So seeing meaning in a coincidence doesn't, you know, how we used to look at that, it's like, you're insane, that doesn't exist, that's called a coincidence. Maybe to you it is, but to me it means something. To me it means something every time, that every single time that I look at the clock, it's a double number. That's weird.
It is.
But it's cool. So I prefer to assign meaning to it and help myself through my issues, through my problems, through situations, through difficulties, using something like this. And I do feel, Cecilia, as you were saying, that this should be normalized. It's okay. Everyone has their own way of dealing with this, and there are so many ways that you can do it. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but the significance that it has is the one that you attribute to it.
exactly, your solutions. I think that at the end, as long as you find your answers, because I actually was going to ask you, what I realized is irrelevant. I was going to ask you, do you think when you are doing this work, the person or you as a human, as your own consciousness, answer that, or there is other spirits, other energies? But at the end, whatever the case it is, the answer is there. And if it's beneficial, that's what matters, I think.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Personally, sometimes it's not always. Often it's just me. Sometimes it does feel like there is another source for the words that I speak, especially in sessions, specifically in sessions that are a little heavier, that have, you know, harder subjects, that have people who are more disconnected from themselves or from the issue at hand. And oftentimes I don't remember sessions either. It's not information that I keep at all. People will come up to me later and be like, "Oh my God, this thing that you told me would happen 6 months ago totally came true." I mean, who are you? I don't know. I don't remember. I really don't.
Wow. I think when you told me something similar, right? That sometimes when this kind of um, energies are there, you are not there. So
Yes,
you're
yes.
just the
I've had
guardian.
that happen to exactly. Exactly, because it's like you just step out of the way, and whatever information needs to be transmitted, you're just the channel for it, and the person receives it, and that's it.
Yeah, it is, but you can still, I feel like you can still interpret that however you like. I think this is really, um, for me at least, a crux issue is, you know, is it God, or is it the divine, or is it just me, or is it flow, or is it, it doesn't really matter what it is. The point is exactly what Gwen said, is that you get to step out of the way, you get to be focused on the game and not focused on a problem. You get to be focused and open on something creative and something fun. And that automatically, I feel, sort of allows your brain to just kind of open up a little bit. The same way as when you're very, very stuck on one task, and instead of sitting there banging your head against it, you might as well, you know, go for a walk or cook dinner or stare at the wall but in the other direction. Like, try to change your point of view, do something else, and it shakes your brain a little bit loose. So I feel like, exactly as Gwen was saying, is that you get to step away from this very human element in us, which is worry about a problem, and you get to focus on, if not a solution, then at least guidance, or at least fun. It's something fun. I like looking at the pictures on tarot cards and figuring how, like, how is it possible that for this question, which was dealt on this issue, I get that card which has that symbol. And like, it's amazing. Why would I not find that interesting? Whether it's real or not is not the point. It's that it's giving me new information.
Exactly. Amazing.
I wanted to ask you if you are willing to maybe make a reading for us on just the collective energy right now.
Of course.
Something
Collective
that we
energy.
could all have fun tonight with.
Yay.
All right, let's see.
Show me
I
the
usually, huh?
could you show me the stones a little bit?
I will try, because I
Okay.
have them in a pouch and
Ah,
they're like on a, but okay. So the first one that we're getting is Berkana, which, can you see that? It looks like a bee,
Mhm.
yeah.
basically. Berkana is a rune of fertility, of new beginnings, um, starting something, of early energies, so to speak, of growth, spring.
Pretty good. Nice.
I'm just going to pull all of the stones and then I'll show them to you one by one. All right. So the first stone I showed you is basically like the general, how do I say this? It's like the general symbol around which the energy or the question or the answer revolves. Then I have a second rune, which I lay next to that usually, which is sort of a support for that first one. So in this case, it's Urox, which kind of looks like an N. And this is usually a signifier for a challenge. Not necessarily something bad, but something new, something that you need to keep your eye on, and something that is presenting itself as an opportunity for growth. But if you don't take it, it can be an opportunity for stagnation. It all very much depends on how you take it. I'm going to read it as this is, opportunities. New beginnings and opportunities are coming along within an energy of movement, which is this rune, which signifies the horse, is Evas. And this is to signify rhythm, to signify distance, to look at how well you are moving along your own path. Why the horse? I believe, if I remember correctly, it has to do with the fact that back in ye olden days, your territory, your land, was as far as you could get on horseback in one day. So as far as you could go, that was it. Like, sun goes down, that's it. That's all the land that you get.
Wow.
So the horse was very important, of course, in those days for transportation. And this movement comes together with more movement in the rune of Ansus, which is the rune. This is I feel this rune is very associated with Odin, but that has to do with the fact that this is a rune of flow and of breath. And Odin is a god of flow and breath and creativity and poetry. You can look at this as rivers being undammed, so things flowing forward, breath renewing something. So we're really getting into this energy in this reading of very spring-like, like blossoming, the sun is coming out, the birds are starting to chirp. There's opportunity for growth. There is a momentum that is building up out of where we're coming from, which is winter. And especially with COVID going on, it's very stagnant. It's dead. It's not dead because a lot happens under the surface, but it's happening quietly. And now it's really coming up. There's opportunities arising out of this. I see for like forward motion in this is Fehu, which is the first rune stave of the entire alphabet, of the entire Futhark, which signifies technically cattle, but it's abundance. So that can be financial abundance, but not all abundance is always just about money, right? You can also be talking about health. You can be talking about family, friends, opportunities, just anything that you would like to have a lot of can be in abundance. And this rune stave comes together with Yera, which is the rune of cycles, basically, of the year, of harvest and seeding. So I feel that within this reading, it's very much a beginning point of something. It's very much, okay, we learned some new lessons, and from here on, opportunities are arising, and we should try and flow and move with them as far as we can, and as relaxed as we can, and it will bring forth new abundance.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Movement, change, opportunities.
Yes. Keeping your eye on the ball. That an opportunity comes, you need to be able to see it, and you need to be able to take it, which is very easy to say, not as easy to do.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I'm struggling with that too. I feel this reading on a very personal level.
Wow, yeah, because I think that with the horse, it's a lot about you have the horse. We have the horse here. Well, you can ride it and
Right.
then you move forward, or you can just leave it there and you won't arrive anywhere.
Well, also, I don't know if you've ever been on a horse, but if you spend any significant amount of time on a horse and you try to go against it, or you struggle with the flow of the horse's movement, you're going to be very, very sore the next day. Your entire body is going to hurt. But if you manage to find the rhythm in which the animal is moving, it's going to become much easier to sit on it and to let it take you where it needs to go, and for you to be able to guide it where you want it to go, and instead of trying to force, like, I want you to go this way. Is like, that's
Mhm.
all right, you're going to go that way, but I would like to go, oh, okay, then we veer off over here. It's a balance thing. It's a feeling. It's, you can't just come in and be like stiff and we're going this way. That's
Mhm.
not how it works.
Connecting with the energy of the flow.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, that's, I will encourage everybody to go on a horse, because I know that feeling. Really, I know that feeling when you are like, the horse is trotting and you're like all
Mhm.
over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You're
And
all over, right?
you really have to feel the horse and feel the
Relax.
rhythm up
Yes.
and down, up, and you measure yourself to that. And once you get it, it's
You are
so fun.
free.
It's once you get it, and once you, it's a trust thing as well, right? You have to trust the horse, but the horse also needs to be able to trust you.
Yeah,
So in this case, we're not talking about a literal horse, you're talking about the universe.
yeah,
But if you don't trust that the universe is helping you out, that it's leading you somewhere, then you're only going to be struggling against it. So it also has to do a little bit with, okay, there's a rhythm to this and there's a reason to it and it's going somewhere. I don't know where, but it's going somewhere.
yeah.
You might as well go with it.
Amazing.
Yeah, and also the support, no, that it offers.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer when, even if it later comes out, it's like, no, the universe is, it's all fake and it's all a coincidence and nothing is real. I'll still be like, that's cool. And I like knowing it, but I will still prefer to believe that there is a reason that we are having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So true.
Yes. This is so cool. I've always been very attracted to this culture, even though also coming from South America. And I really like is that you lived in South America, but you're also very connected to this culture of that the runes comes
Hmm.
from. I find that both cultures match pretty well. What do you think?
I'm sorry?
Like both cultures, like the South American culture and, let's say, European culture, or is
Hmm.
where the runes comes from precisely, are
It's
Nordic,
Scandinavia, northern.
Scandinavian.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of people in South America that are obsessed with the Scandinavian or Nordic.
This
Uh,
is true.
right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Is
I
it?
don't know what that is actually, but there's a myth or a legend that is told, from what I know, among the peoples in the Andes region. But the Andes is huge. I mean, it goes all the way up into northern America, right? Which has to do with the myth of the condor and the eagle. Have you guys heard of it?
No, say.
Mhm.
Or
No?
maybe, but
It
tell us.
has something to do with, I'm not an expert on it, but it has to do with how when Columbus first arrived in the Americas, he basically brought the eagle with him, or the origin story of the world is, people, there's condor people and eagle people, and they fly together for a while and then they separate, and then the eagle people, which is Europeans, um, come back into condor territory and they fight, and the condor is defeated. And now, supposedly, there's this legend that says that the condor and the eagle will fly again, and they will this time manage to fly together.
That's
So it's
cool.
actually really interesting that so many people in this big ass region that is the Andes, are, in a pop cultural way, really interested in what happens with Vikings and
Yes.
these Nordic cultures, considering that it's been so violent, and that history itself, if you take it along the line, um, of eagle and condor people, that the eagle basically murdered a condor. I mean, it's awful. It's really horrible, everything that has happened. And looking at why there is such a connection, I don't know why, but I feel like it sort of turns into this idea that right now we're in a point in history where these two peoples or these two birds are learning to fly together. So
Yeah,
the merging of these cultures is actually really interesting, but I don't know yet why. Maybe we'll learn in this lifetime.
I hope so. I hope so too, because for what I've seen and the people around me that were very interested in Nordic cultures, they have a very romantic approach to it, but also nature oriented, more towards the magical side of it,
Mhm.
and that is also a part of, let's say, of detaching from that harshness sometimes that you live in South America
Mm.
to this more yeah, magical, let's say, it also connected to indigenous, you know.
I do think it's that. I think
Yeah,
that um, it's not just Nordic culture. I think that Nordic culture, especially in the past decade, has gained a lot of traction in mainstream, and that's why so many people gravitate towards it. But I think what's happening perhaps is that Celtic culture, um, Frankian culture, Romans, Greeks, Norse, these are almost like our native side. You know, like even the Greeks and the Romans are already too far developed. But if you look at who is native in Northern Europe, there's not really an answer to it because we
yes,
can't we can't really say that we're native in the same way that indigenous peoples are in, you know, like the Australian Aboriginals or the Mapuche people in Chile or in Argentina or tribes in Mexico and in Colombia. There's the idea of native for European people and then specifically for white people has been so eradicated and has been so lost, and there has been so much trauma and damage done to other natives that we no longer consider this to be an area that might have or not native peoples. You know, I mean, the Vikings basically eradicated themselves. I mean, someone came in and was like, all right, I'm going to start believing in the Christian God. And then they just started converting everyone violently still. And we sort of forget that 1,000 years ago, we already lost our indigenous culture. So maybe it is that it's sort of this uprising of this indigenous idea that is ours so that we don't have to force our way into indigenous um, religion, indigenous spirituality of other areas. So perhaps it is just a sort of trying to find and connect um, to the human within all of us, because that is the one thing that we all have in common, right? But we're all human.
right now, yes.
To our ancestors.
Ancestors.
Exactly. And this ancestral energy, which I feel is much more pervasive in South America,
Yeah,
you know, because of its wilderness, because there is still a lot of wild nature, because there are still indigenous peoples, and we should protect that because we live here now, and we can see that here in the Netherlands we don't have it anymore. It's gone.
yes, I've asked a few people about it and they don't know much about mythology or indigenous, or no, not really. That's very
It's not
interesting.
here. It's been so long since it was lost, and so much of old knowledge um, was literally tortured and burned out of us in these areas of the world, you know, that it's, I don't know, maybe it has to do with that. It's interesting that you mentioned that so many people in South America specifically seem to gravitate towards this,
Yeah, it's
and
very cool.
that so many people from Europe seem to gravitate the other
The
way.
other way. Yes, absolutely.
So maybe it is just spiritually or ancestrally this thing that we're calling out to each other, like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
you over there.
Yes, it could be. It could be. But now that we're about to finish, is there anything you would like to share finally from you? A message for the viewers?
Stay cool. Don't trip. My DMs are always open. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm old school like that. You can find me online, nomadicnika.com. Follow for more.
Yes, follow
We do.
Nika.
I offer personal readings. We can do them online, or we can do them over WhatsApp or whatever. The world is our oyster. It's a game anyway. We get to choose this. Hit me up if you have questions.
Beautiful.
Thank
Thanks a
you
lot,
so
Nika, for this amazing information.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's so nice to meet you, Cecilia. I hadn't spoken to you yet. And it's so nice. I say that really, like, honestly, it's so nice to connect with people from over there.
Ay,
I, miss, I miss over there.
ay, how nice.
Yes, it's been such a pleasure, and I really it has revived my interest in Nordic cultures again. I'm like,
Well,
yeah,
you know where to find me. Like, let's
yes,
talk.
yes, absolutely. I would love to hit you up a message and have a little chat because yeah, I
Yes.
really your readings have been amazing for me, and I really recommend you for whoever is interested in
Oh,
knowing
thank
know
you.
more about the runes or having just a chat with you. It's just life changing, life changing.
Awesome. Thank you so
Really,
much.
really, really,
That's so
highly
sweet.
recommended.
It's been so great being here, and I hope we'll do it again sometime.
Awesome,
Yes.
for sure.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here, and we'll see each other maybe next Friday. To whoever is watching, you can catch us up.
Bye.
Updated the Instagram. Bye bye.
Thank you.